2 years ago, I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and the warmth of my wife's kiss on my forehead. Lauren smiled at me before heading to work, and I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. We had just bought our first home in the suburbs of Phoenix, and life felt perfect. I had no idea that the woman making my coffee was already planning her escape. Looking back, I should have noticed the way she avoided my eyes. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you believe in karma and consequences, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Because what I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the price of betrayal. Lauren and I met 6 years before that morning. A mutual friend threw a birthday party at a rooftop bar downtown, and she walked in, wearing a yellow sundress that made everyone turn their heads. She had just graduated from college with a degree in finance, full of energy and ambition. I was 27 at the time, working as a software engineer for a growing tech company. When she laughed at my terrible joke about algorithms, I knew I wanted to see her again. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. Nothing fancy, just a quiet dinner at the Italian restaurant where we had our first date. She cried and said yes before I even finished asking. The wedding was small, maybe 60 people, held in her parents' backyard in Dallas. Her mother cried. My father gave a speech about finding your person. Everyone said we were perfect together. After the wedding, we moved to Phoenix for my job. Lauren found a position at a real estate development company as a junior financial analyst. She was smart and driven, and within 3 years, she climbed her way up to financial manager. I was proud of her. We bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, because we talked about having kids someday. Life was exactly what I had always wanted: stable, loving, full of promise. The first sign came about 8 months before I discovered everything. Lauren started coming home later than usual. She blamed it on work, said the company was expanding, and she had more responsibilities. I believed her because I had no reason not to. She had always been dedicated to her career, and I admired that about her. But small things began to change. Her phone was always face down on the table. She started taking calls in the other room, closing the door behind her. When I asked who she was talking to, she would say it was just a coworker or her mother. She began traveling for work more often, sometimes on weekends. Conferences, she said. Client meetings in other cities. I told myself I was overthinking. I did not want to be that husband, the jealous one who questions everything. Lauren had never given me a reason to doubt her in 5 years of marriage. So I pushed my suspicions aside and focused on being supportive. When she seemed tired, I cooked dinner. When she said she needed space, I gave it to her. But I noticed other things too. She started dressing differently for work. New outfits, more makeup than usual, a new perfume that I did not recognize. When I complimented her, she just shrugged and said she wanted to look more professional. The intimacy between us faded. She was always too tired or not in the mood. We went from being close to being roommates who shared a bed. The moment that changed everything happened on a Friday evening in March. I finished work early and decided to surprise Lauren with a romantic dinner at home. I stopped at the florist and bought her favorite flowers, white lilies. I picked up takeout from the French restaurant she loved. I set up candles on the dining table and put on the playlist from our wedding. Then, I called her to ask what time she would be home. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice slightly breathless. She said she was stuck in a meeting and would not be home until late, maybe 10 or 11. But in the background, I heard something that did not match her story. Music, laughter, the clinking of glasses. It sounded like a bar or a party, not a conference room. I asked her where she was. She hesitated for just a second before saying she was at the office. The meeting was wrapping up, she said. She would text me when she left. After she hung up, I sat alone at the candlelit table, surrounded by flowers and food that was getting cold. For the first time in our marriage, I truly believed my wife was lying to me. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every strange moment from the past several months. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the new clothes and perfume. I wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation, but my gut told me otherwise. Something was wrong, and I needed to find out what. I decided to investigate quietly. I did not tell anyone, not even Ryan, my best friend from college who happened to be a lawyer. I started paying closer attention to Lauren's schedule, noting when she left and when she came home. I checked our bank statements online and found charges I had never noticed before. Expensive dinners at restaurants I had never heard of. Hotel stays in cities where she claimed to have conferences. The dates matched her business trips, but the charges seemed too personal, too intimate for work events. My heart grew heavier with each discovery. I wanted to be wrong. I prayed I was just being paranoid. But the evidence kept piling up, and I knew I could not ignore it anymore. 3 weeks after that Friday night, Lauren announced she had a 2-day business trip to Tucson. She packed a small suitcase and kissed me goodbye at the door, promising to call when she arrived. I told her to drive safe. But as soon as her car disappeared around the corner, I grabbed my keys and followed her. I kept my distance, staying several cars behind, as we left Phoenix heading south. But Lauren did not take the highway to Tucson. Instead, she exited toward the east side of the city, into a neighborhood I did not recognize. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. My heart pounded so hard, I could hear it in my ears. She pulled into the parking lot of a luxury apartment complex. I parked across the street and watched through my windshield as she got out of her car and walked toward the entrance. A man came out to meet her. He was tall, well-dressed with graying hair at his temples. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her right there in the open, like they had done it 1,000 times before. I recognized him. His name was Marcus, the vice president of Lauren's company. I had met him at a corporate holiday party 2 years earlier. We shook hands. He told me I was a lucky man to have such a talented wife. He smiled at me while probably already sleeping with her. I sat in my car for what felt like hours. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and took pictures. I recorded video of them walking inside together, his arm around her waist. The evidence was undeniable, but I needed more. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal went. Over the following weeks, I used my technical skills to dig deeper. Lauren and I shared a home computer, and she had stayed logged into an old email account. What I found there shattered whatever was left of my heart. Hundreds of messages between her and Marcus dating back 18 months. Love letters, plans for secret getaways, inside jokes about me about how oblivious I was. But the affair was not the worst part. As I scrolled through their correspondence, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Lauren had been transferring money from our joint savings account into a private account I knew nothing about. Over 18 months, she had moved more than $40,000. Our savings for the future, money I had worked overtime to earn. She used it for weekend trips with Marcus, designer handbags, jewelry, fancy hotels. I was not just a betrayed husband. I was also a victim of theft. My own wife had stolen from me to fund her affair with a married man. For a long time, I sat in the dark living room, staring at the computer screen. I thought about confronting her immediately. I imagined storming into that apartment and beating Marcus until he could not stand. I wanted to scream at Lauren to ask her how she could do this to someone who loved her unconditionally. But I did not do any of those things. Instead, I called Ryan. I told him everything, my voice breaking as I described what I had found. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said 5 words that changed my approach completely. Do not do anything yet. Ryan explained that if I confronted Lauren now, she would have time to hide evidence and prepare for a divorce battle. But if I waited and gathered more documentation, I could protect myself legally and financially. He offered to help me build a case. Reluctantly, I agreed. The next 2 months were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal while living with the woman who had destroyed our marriage. Every morning, Lauren kissed me and said she loved me. Every night I smiled and set it back while my insides twisted with disgust. I lost 15 pounds from stress. I barely slept. Dark circles formed under my eyes, and coworkers started asking if I was okay. Ryan helped me hire a private investigator to gather professional evidence. We also consulted with an accountant who could document Lauren's unauthorized transfers from our joint account. The case against her grew stronger every week. During my research, I discovered something else. Marcus was married with 2 children. His wife, Patricia, was an elementary school teacher who volunteered at their church. She had no idea her husband was having an affair. When I saw her photo online smiling with her kids at a school event, I felt sick. Lauren and Marcus had not just betrayed me. They were destroying multiple families. As the evidence mounted, I began to form a plan. I did not just want a divorce. I wanted Lauren and Marcus to face real consequences for what they had done. This was not about revenge for the sake of cruelty. It was about justice. People who lie, cheat, and steal should not be allowed to walk away without accountability. I prepared everything carefully. I wrote a detailed letter to Patricia, including printed photos and a timeline of her husband's affair. I compiled a report documenting Lauren's financial misconduct at work, suspecting she had done more than just steal from our savings. I would send these when the time was right. But first I would let karma take its natural course. And then I would finish what karma started. 4 months after I first discovered the truth, something unexpected happened. Lauren came home one evening with red, swollen eyes. She had been crying, though she tried to hide it. When I asked what was wrong, she mumbled something about work stress and went straight to the bedroom. Through my private investigator, I learned what had really happened. Marcus had ended their affair. Someone had sent Patricia an anonymous letter containing photos of her husband with Lauren. Patricia confronted Marcus and threatened to divorce him, taking half of everything he owned. Marcus panicked. He was not willing to lose his house, his retirement accounts, and his reputation for a workplace fling. So he cut Lauren off completely. He blocked her number, ignored her emails, and pretended she did not exist. Lauren was devastated. She had thrown away her marriage, her integrity, and $40,000 for a man who discarded her the moment things got difficult. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. 2 weeks later, karma struck again. Lauren's company announced an internal audit of the finance department. Irregularities had been found in several accounts, and everyone in leadership was being investigated. As financial manager, Lauren was at the center of the inquiry. The auditors discovered that Lauren had been involved in more than just personal theft. She had helped Marcus hide certain transactions that skirted the edge of legality. In exchange, he had given her cash bonuses off the books totaling over $60,000. When the company found out, they fired her immediately. They also threatened legal action, though they had not yet filed charges. Lauren came home that day in complete hysteria. She cried and told me she had been wrongfully terminated. She claimed her co-workers had set her up, that she was innocent. She wrapped her arms around me and sobbed into my chest, saying I was the only person she could count on. I held her and made comforting sounds while feeling absolutely nothing. She had no idea that the anonymous letter to Patricia came from me. She did not know I had sent a detailed tip to the company's audit committee, pointing them towards specific accounts and transactions. I had lit the fuse on every bomb that was now exploding in her life. But I was not finished yet. 1 week after Lauren lost her job, I asked her to sit down with me in the living room. She thought I wanted to comfort her, to discuss how we would handle her unemployment together. She sat on the couch, looking exhausted and defeated, expecting sympathy from her faithful husband. Instead, I placed 3 items on the coffee table between us: a stack of divorce papers, a folder containing photographs of her and Marcus at his apartment, at restaurants, at hotels, and a printed spreadsheet showing every dollar she had stolen from our joint account over 18 months. Lauren's face went white. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked at the evidence, then at me, then back at the evidence. I watched her realize that everything she thought she knew was wrong. I have known everything for 6 months, I said. My voice was calm, steady, almost cold. I followed you to his apartment. I read your emails. I tracked every penny you stole from us. She started crying immediately, begging me to listen. She said Marcus had manipulated her. She said she had made a terrible mistake. She said she still loved me and would do anything to fix our marriage. I let her talk. When she finished, I responded without emotion. He did not force you to steal $40,000 from our savings. He did not force you to lie to my face every single day for over a year. You made those choices yourself, Lauren kept pleading. She would go to therapy. She would pay back every cent. She would spend the rest of her life making it up to me. Just please, please do not leave her. I looked at the woman I had once promised to love forever. I remembered our wedding day, the hope in her eyes, the vows we exchanged. And I felt nothing but pity. There is something else you should know, I said. The letter that Patricia received about Marcus came from me. The anonymous tip to your company's auditors came from me. Everything that has happened to you in the past month, I made it happen. Lauren stared at me in disbelief. Her crying stopped. Her expression shifted from desperation to shock, to something like horror. You destroyed my life, she whispered. I shook my head slowly. No. You destroyed our life. I just made sure there were consequences. I stood up and pointed to the divorce papers on the table. Sign them. If you do, we can end this quietly. But if you fight me, I will pursue criminal charges for the money you stole. I have documentation of everything. Your lawyer will tell you that you have no case. Lauren sat there for a long time, tears streaming down her face. She knew I was right. With the evidence I had gathered, she would get nothing in the divorce. She might even face jail time if I pressed charges. She had no leverage, no options, no escape. She picked up the pen and signed every page. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Marcus's wife, Patricia, went through with her divorce, taking their house and a significant portion of his retirement savings. The company's investigation expanded to include Marcus's role in the financial irregularities. He was stripped of his position as vice president and quietly pushed out to avoid a public scandal. His reputation in the industry was destroyed. Lauren faced a civil lawsuit from her former employer. To pay the settlement, she had to sell a condominium she had secretly purchased with stolen money, an investment property I had not even known about. After everything was settled, she had almost nothing left. She moved back to Texas to live with her parents, a 30-year-old woman starting over from scratch. Our mutual friends chose sides, and most of them chose mine. As for me, I kept the house. Through the divorce agreement, I recovered most of the money Lauren had taken from our savings. On paper, I had won completely. But victory did not feel the way I expected. The first few months after the divorce were harder than I anticipated. I had spent so long planning and executing my strategy that I never stopped to think about what would come after. When it was over, I found myself alone in a house full of memories, unsure what to do next. I did not sleep well. Some nights I woke at 3 a.m. reaching for someone who was not there. The silence in the house felt heavy, oppressive. I ate poorly and stopped exercising. I went through the motions at work, but my heart was not in it. There were moments when I questioned everything. Had I been too harsh? Should I have given Lauren a chance to explain, to make amends? I replayed our confrontation in my head, wondering if I had become someone I did not recognize. The man who had set those traps, who had watched his wife suffer and felt satisfaction, was that really me? But then, I would remember the truth. Lauren had not just made a mistake. She had carried on an affair for 18 months, while lying to my face every single day. She had stolen tens of thousands of dollars to spend on another man. She had joked about me in emails, calling me clueless and boring. If Marcus had been willing to leave his wife, Lauren would have left me without a second thought. I had not been cruel. I had been strategic. There is a difference. Ryan refused to let me wallow in self-pity. He showed up at my door one Saturday morning and demanded I get dressed. We went to a gym near his office, and he signed me up for a membership. For the next several months, he met me there 3 times a week, pushing me to lift weights and run on the treadmill until I was too exhausted to think about Lauren. Slowly, I started to feel better. I lost the unhealthy weight I had gained and built muscle I never had before. I had more energy. I slept more soundly. The fog that had clouded my mind began to lift. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned during my marriage. I bought a guitar and taught myself to play something Lauren had always dismissed as a waste of time. I joined a hiking group that explored trails around Arizona on weekends. I made new friends who knew nothing about my past, people who liked me for who I was becoming rather than who I had been. A year after the divorce, I barely recognized my old life. My house had been redecorated, all traces of Lauren removed. My career had taken off after I threw myself into a challenging new project. I was healthier, happier, and more at peace than I had been in years. The anger that had consumed me for so long gradually faded into something quieter. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. 18 months after our divorce was finalized, I ran into Lauren at the Phoenix airport. I was returning from a conference in San Francisco. She was waiting at a gate for a flight to Dallas. She looked older than I remembered, thinner, with tired eyes, and gray roots showing in her hair. She saw me and hesitated, then walked over. I could tell she had rehearsed what she wanted to say. "Clifford," she began, her voice shaky, "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I need you to know that I am sorry. What I did was unforgivable. I think about it every day." I looked at her for a long moment. I searched inside myself for anger, for pain, for any of the emotions that had defined our final months together. But I found nothing. She was just a woman I used to know, someone from a chapter of my life that had closed. "I hope you find peace, Lauren," I said, and I meant it. Then I walked away and did not look back. I boarded my flight and spent the journey home thinking about how far I had come. The man who had followed his wife to her lover's apartment, who had meticulously planned her downfall, felt like a stranger now. I understood why he had done what he did, but I no longer needed to be him. Here is what I learned from all of it. Betrayal does not define your worth. Someone else's choice to be dishonest says everything about them and nothing about you. I spent too long wondering what I had done wrong, what I could have done differently to make Lauren stay faithful. The answer was nothing. She made her choices, and they were never about me. I also learned that sometimes karma needs a little help. I do not regret exposing Lauren and Marcus. They were hurting innocent people, Patricia, her children, me, and they would have continued if no one stopped them. Holding people accountable for their actions is not cruelty. It is justice. But I learned something else too. After you have settled the score, you have to let go. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. For months after the divorce, I was so focused on what Lauren had done that I forgot to live my own life. The day I stopped thinking about her was the day I truly became free. If you are going through something similar, know this: the pain will not last forever. The person who betrayed you will have to live with their choices. But you get to decide what comes next. You can build something better. You can find people who deserve your trust. You can become someone stronger than you ever imagined. Sometimes the best revenge is not just success. It is peace. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect yourself from someone who betrayed your trust? What did you learn from that experience? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your words might help someone else who is going through a hard time right now. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like so more people can find it. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories about resilience, justice, and finding your way forward. And share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they are not alone. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Whatever you are facing in your own life, I wish you the courage to stand up for yourself and the wisdom to know when to let go. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.